Hey folks, how are you doing today? Now, welcome to this free webinar where today I'm going to be talking about the art of being a standout guest. Um, now, as I said at the start, this is a free webinar and we've got a series of free webinars happening every single month. But I'll go into that in a second. What I want to do now is just explain to you what the format of this webinar is. So effectively, we've got half hour of presentation where I've got a few slides like this, which covers different parts of my podcasting course, all about being a standout guest. And I'm going to give you as much information as I can in that half hour period. Then what I'll do is I will put the action onto you and put the emphasis onto you, and you can ask me any questions for the following half hour. So over the course of the next hour, you'll have half an hour of me talking and then half hour of me responding to your questions. So if you've got any questions, please put them into the comments. I know this has been streamed on LinkedIn, on YouTube, as well as I think I can go on those two places. So if you have got any questions, please put them into the comments and I will ask for them. Now, this will be available afterwards as well. So if you do get disturbed halfway through, or you just want to watch a few bits back because it was absolute gold and you wanted just to double check a few points, please do. And on LinkedIn, I will be sending out the slides into the comments as well. So you will have this as a PDF. Now, as I said, this is part of the free webinar series that I run all year round. But August, where I have a month off. So as you can see, between April and July, we cover topics like launching your own podcast. We've got a niche one just like a few other ones where we just focus on authors. We've got a beginner's guide to podcasting, which is a free course which is available on Udemy and also Grow Radio as well. That covers all the basics. And we've also got a new course that's being launched in July, which is all about how to keep your podcast alive and thriving. And then in September, we have got Grow Live, which is a week-long celebration of all things podcasting. We've got the beginner's guide to podcasting. We've got a standout guest, and then ready to get for people to launch in the 2027. We've got the podcast launch guide being in December. So let's kick off this course with the art of being a standout guest. And just before I do, I'm just going to double check on LinkedIn to see if it is being streamed on there, which I can see it is, which is great. So if you watch on LinkedIn, hey, how are you getting on? How are you doing? So we've got there, as I say, if you've got any questions at all, please put them into the comments wherever you are watching. So first off, I want you to talk about I want you to think about identifying the right podcasts. Now, there's loads of benefits to being a guest on a podcast, including increased visibility and also networking opportunities and, building digital assets. There's loads, and I'll talk about those all the way through. But it's important for you to be featured on the right podcasts. Now, this isn't just industry specific. So if you're a HR professional, then it doesn't have to just be a HR podcast. But it does have to have the relevant audience to the message that you're sharing. If not, there's going to be a big disconnect, and that'll be bad for the guests, for you as a guest, for the host, as well as other people, as well as people who are watching, listening, and also just everyone around the podcast. So you want to be on the right podcasts. But what are the right podcasts for you? So first off, you need to figure out what your message is and what your key message is and what value you're going to be able to give to the audiences. And then from there, you can go and you can find the right audiences and the podcasts which match up the audiences, because the best podcasts are when the guests match up with the audience and the host then can get the value from the guests to the audience. That's what you want. So the right podcast might not be the same industry that you're in. It could be a different industry. So for instance, let's run with a HR kind of angle. And if you got your own HR business, then you could well go on to HR podcasts, which there's quite a few out there. But you could also go on to business podcasts. You can go on to community podcasts because you build a community around your business. You can go on to health and well-being if you set up your business for that particular reason. If you've got a personal journey, you can go on to a self kind of podcast or a lifestyle podcast where you talk about your journey into where you are now. There's loads of different podcasts you can get to, but it's about identifying what your core messages are and then matching them up with the audience. So important. Once you then found which shows you want to go on to, what you really kind of need to do is start listening to those shows, because then you'll be able to see if you're a good fit to the podcast. Now, again, what that podcast is already there, and you're being a guest on that podcast. So it's no great honor in my eyes to being a guest on a podcast. So tuning in, you've got to listen to the show before you go on it. But also, you can pick up some really cool things if you start listening to the show. You can pick out different questions that the host kind of says all the time. What you could do is also you could start to then discover what common themes run through the episodes or through the show, so you can then adjust your key messages to those themes. You can also figure out if the host talks fast, if the host talks slow, if they like long answers, if they like short answers, and also if there's any common questions they ask throughout the episode, you can prepare for those. But all of this stuff is helping you create your key messages and help you understand what that show needs from you. You can also figure out the episode length, how long you're going to be talking for, and all those really cool bits that really help you get prepared for the podcast interview. So if you're being a guest on a podcast, I urge you to start listening to a show. Now, if you aren't sure of what show you want to go on to, then there's places like matchmaker.fm that might be able to help you match up with different podcasts. But you might also be able to put a shout out on your social media platforms like LinkedIn to say, actually, I'm looking to become a guest on these podcasts, and I want to talk, and I would love to talk to people who've got the same audiences who are interested in this topic. And you might get 2 or 3 people kind of say, yeah, I know someone, or a few people say, actually, I've got a podcast I'd love you to talk on. But you need to listen to those shows first before you say yes, because that way you know if you're going to be a good fit for it. And it's all down to crafting your key messages. What you want to do is you want to make sure that when you go onto the show, like I said, in identifying the right podcasts, you want to make sure that your key messages match up with those audiences. Now, those key messages shouldn't just be kind of one-liners or statements. They should be a mix of both, because every podcast hosts will like different forms of answers. Some will like short, sharp, snappy answers. Some would like story-driven, long answers. And your key messages have to fit in with those. So, for instance, if someone asks, and this is quite a common question for me anyway, is how did you get into podcasting? I've got a really short answer, which is about a minute, which is a couple of sentences long. I've got a minute or 2 version of that answer, but I've also got a 5-minute version. Now, the key message is the same all the way through. It's the way I deliver it and what I include in it. So for the longer messages, you include more stories. You describe things in a little bit more detail, and that way the person knows what's happening around you. The listener can actually start visualizing a rainy day. All that kind of stuff really does help to build that storytelling element. But those key messages are really important to have a mixture of lengths for it. But also, it's good for you to know, because being a guest on a podcast is great public speaking practice sessions. It's great for public speaking because you're repeating the same messages over and over again. So therefore you get smoother, you get less ums and less ahs, and you're more likely to not trip over your words. But the main thing is knowing what your key messages are to start off with. And because you know what key messages that you're going to deliver, you know what audience you're going to be around, and you know what they're going to respond to, you're going to deliver value, not a sales pitch. No one likes listening to a podcast or being a host. Being a host myself, I don't like a guest coming in. I'm just purely selling. It's no good for anyone. You want to go on there and you want to deliver value, not sales. And you ideally want the host to be selling for you. You don't want to be the selling. You don't want to be the salesperson. The host should be the salesperson. And frankly, that should be the case in every single circumstance, because the audience has got trust in the host. They haven't got trust in you because they don't know you potentially, but they've got trust in the host. And with that trust, that host then can sell you. It's your job then to provide the value to back that up. So don't go in selling stuff. And the way you don't go in selling stuff is you give examples and you tell stories. If you just give features and benefits, then actually that's literally just selling That's selling all the way through. If you mention your brand name or your company name all the way through, or the fact you got a new book or a new course and that kind of stuff all the way through, it doesn't work. What you want to do is you want to deliver value, not give a sales pitch. And you do that by, as I said, telling stories, but also making sure your key messages are on point as well. It's all down to the preparation. Once you figured out who you want to who you want to talk to, you matched up your audiences, you've listened to the shows, you want to start connecting with the host. And you can do that in a number of different ways. You can do that by literally just reaching out on social media to say, hey, I would love to be a guest on your podcast and I talk about these topics. Might have to fill out a form, you might go through a little interview process, you might have to connect with someone before reaching the host. Every podcast is slightly different, but the main thing is when you go into connecting with a host, you shouldn't be going in cold. You should be going in warm. So you should have probably at least contacted them or messaged them on social media or replied to a few comments or liked a few posts potentially to warm them up. You might have also already met them somewhere else, so therefore when you're asking to go on a podcast or you've been asked to go on a podcast, it's not really coming as nice and warm. You don't want to go in completely cold. Think about it like dating. You wouldn't go straight into the wedding without courting them to start off and getting to know them. So it's the same with podcasting. So you can do that in loads of different ways. Social media is a great tool to do that. But you ultimately want to make it easier for that host. You don't want to send out a blanket invitation to 100 different people. You want to send out 100. If you're going to send out 100 invites, you want to send 100 personalized invites, which is down to those people saying about, you're giving names, you're giving examples of shows that you liked and that kind of stuff. But you want to make it as easy for that host to say yes to you. It's as simple as that. And you do that by already having all of this preparation done in before you've contacted the host. I would love to be a guest on your podcast because I've listened to a few and I think my message resonates with your audiences. The episodes that you've done with this person, and this person, and the way you asked this question and this question really resonated with me. And I'd love to have that opportunity to share this message and this message to your audience. Now that is really powerful because that shows that you've listened to shows, you've enjoyed them because you've taken stuff away from it, and also you thought about your key messages and matched it up to them. That's really, really powerful. Rather than, hey, I've got a fantastic message that I want to share to your audience about this, and this. If you'd like me to be a guest on your podcast, let me know. Completely different. Two messages, completely different. But you, as I said, you want to connect with the host well before you ask to go onto the podcast. And the thing is, there's different levels of podcasts in terms of audience sizes. It's not about audience size. It's all about that audience and how passionate they are. And if your message identifies with them, a small audience is going to be greater than a large audience that doesn't resonate whatsoever. Now, you're at the point now where potentially they've said yes, and actually it's about what tech you need. Now, simply put, you just need a piece of equipment to get your voice onto the computer or onto the recording device. Now, if you go into a studio, this is easy because it's all set up for you. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're doing it online, which most interviews are now online rather than in person, then actually you do need a bit of tech. Now, I'm recording this on a MacBook Pro. I'm just literally recording it using the microphone built into the computer. And my gut and what I'm going to say next might not be good for everybody, but I would say start with the equipment that you've got. So if your starting point is a MacBook, is a computer with a built-in mic, start with that. Then, if you want to build and you want to get on more podcasts, you can invest in a USB mic that plugs into your computer. And we're talking about £100 here, not masses, not thousands of dollars. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need a whole recording studio or mixing desk. All you need is somehow to get your voice onto that. When I first started podcasting, I used a mobile phone and I interviewed people like that. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can get fancier stuff as you go along. You can start small and build. So when it comes to tech, your whole thing is make it as simple as possible and be as comfortable as possible with it all. So if you have got a mic, test it beforehand. If you're going onto a platform that you don't know to record it, look into it beforehand. Ask the host to do a test if they want to. It's all about stuff that makes it easier for you on recording day. So you know that actually all your tech works. And it's little bits like making sure that your computer's plugged in, making sure you do not disturbs on. Little bits like that will make your podcast interview a lot smoother because, frankly, you don't have to worry about it. But any tech issues that happen on a day, they might be freak accidents. The Wi-Fi might suddenly just cut out. Or actually your computer decides to die. But stuff like having updates on the platform beforehand and having to delay the recording because of you updating your computer, that can be avoided. Making sure that your mic works first and you're not plugging a brand new mic in on day of recording. You can remove all that stuff. But you want to remove all the headaches and check the tech well ahead of time. But the essential equipment is literally a way of getting your voice onto the recording device. And that is through your computer, through a butt mic, or something else if you're recording it on location. But really, you want to make sure you remove all the variables before stepping into the recording area as you can. This rolls on, and I could swap these two around. It's up to you, but you want to do a whole dress rehearsal if you can. Now, dress rehearsal for me doesn't involve anybody else. It just involves me. And this is where I set up the stage, where I record. I set my equipment up. I make sure that my backdrop is okay. I make sure that I'm okay. And I make sure that I've got enough time and I've practiced having enough time. So I know everything in my controllables is being controlled. For instance, when I came on here first, I've made sure that this was all sorted. My computer was all sorted. So a tech check beforehand. Make sure my dogs were all walked. They've all had food now, so therefore they're going to be okay for the duration of this. All my devices are on do not disturb. All these little bits. I know that when I've gone on to record and press go live on here, this is all done. But I would have tested that out. I've tested it out many times, but the first time I did it, I did test it all out to know that I need half hour to make sure that all the controllables have been controlled before going in. So you need to allow yourself that time to do that. It also means that when you're going in, you're just focused on this. You're just focused on the interview, or you're just focused on the stream that you're doing it. And that's a good tip for any live stream that you do or interview. If it's pre-recorded or live, just make sure you give yourself enough time. But make sure that you are practicing it. And make sure you practice the content. I checked through these slides quite a few times to make sure I knew how long I had for each slide, plus also what key messages I want to share during these bits. With your podcast experience and your journey and what you're doing, later on, after you've done a few, you might not need to do this. But to start off with, I would rehearse in the setting that you're in your key messages so you know and you feel comfortable with how you're delivering that messages, and you know what you need to do around you to control the controllables. But doing a dress rehearsal is so important. I see so many people going into podcast interviews, especially if they're new to podcasting or or it could be their first one or their first or second one, and they just don't know what to do, and having a dress rehearsal beforehand makes it a lot easier. And this is why I love, if you're going onto a podcast, you have a 10-minute chat or a 5-minute chat with the guests as a host, or the host has a 5-minute or 10-minute guest chat with a guest beforehand, because it just eases everyone down. It just makes them feel a lot more comfortable. So when you're going in, you're both warm and you're not cold. It's really important to have a dress rehearsal beforehand and be ready for it. And this is where setting the stage kind of comes into it. You want to make sure that in the background, if you're doing it online, it's not cluttered, it's simple. The focus should be on you and not what's behind you. Blurred backgrounds are okay to a point, but you also just want to make it as simple for the host to kind of direct you, and you want as least amount of distractions for the people watching as possible. Now, if it's audio, you don't have to worry about this bit, but you want to make sure that everything is, as I say, controlled. So for me, the stage means that I'm personally ready. My appearance is ready. My background is ready. My controllables in terms of my environment, that's all set. I've also got not a classy, but a drink just because my throat dries up. I've also made myself a coffee as well with an almost branded coloured cup. Not quite. It's just the wrong shade, but it's close enough. But it means that if my throat gets dry, I can just have a drink. It's nice and simple. Like so. But the main thing is I've controlled it all and I've set the stage. So therefore, now I know this is my stage. It's easy to replicate. Now, your stage might be different and you might want a whole studio, and that's absolutely fine. The main thing is setting the stage isn't about having an actual stage. It's about preparing your space. And this is about preparing it in terms of physically as well as mentally as well. Just before I did this, I took the dogs out so they could do their thing. But again, it means I don't have to worry about them during this. I did that because I want to make sure that my concentration is on you and not somewhere else. Setting the stage is really important. And again, when you're first going into being a guest on a podcast, you don't tend to do this as much as you need to. Later on, you've practiced it, you're a bit more comfortable. But at the start, you might need to let you spend a bit more time on this. Now, you've done the interview. And what you want to do now is this is all about the marketing and during it as well. First of all, thanking the host is so important, and it's something that a lot of people don't do. And the thing is, your host is, if you think about the host, they are a connection key to their audience. So keeping in touch and thanking the host all the way throughout the episode, when you first start to the end to after when you start sharing it, is so important. And you should have at least 3 thank yous at the very, very least. One at the start of the show, thanking them for being part of it. One at the end, say thanks for the opportunity. One after the actual interview itself, when you've stopped kind of recording. And then also, and that's why there's 3 just in that bit. And then there's all the social media stuff afterwards that you should be thanking the host and linking them in. Social media means that you can tag people in and you should be able to tag them in so they just start the conversation. But it's about connecting. It's about using that interview as a networking tool. And also, to be fair, it's just common decency to thank someone who's given you the opportunity. As I said before, being a guest on a podcast is a great honor, and you should be thanking the host at every single point. Can you tell I'm passionate about that? It's something that a lot of people don't do, and it really, really frustrates me. The other thing that really frustrates me is that you've gone onto a podcast, you spent your time preparing, you've listened to the show, you've approached them, you've got all your key messages all sorted, you've set the stage, you've got yourself ready, you've recorded this show. The host has then spent their time creating the show, and then as a guest, some guests don't share it afterwards. It blows my mind. You spent all this time, and now you're not doing anything with it. What you want to do is you want to spread the word to your about your podcast appearance in as many places as possible. And you want to do this simply by telling people on the channels that you've got available to you. And also put it in places where they will listen. It boggles me that people don't do this when it's a free resource that you can really take advantage of. And what I mean by that is I went on a podcast on Friday, real life example here, went on a podcast on Friday, it got shared on Monday. Between that time, just want to share, I edit the podcast, so I had privy to links before anybody else. However, in between that time, I already had the graphic that was shared by the host. So the host created a graphic for me to share. I then made an article. They also shared with me the show notes as well, which gave the key points that they were kind of promoting as well, which were also part of my key messaging, by the way. So therefore, with that information, I created a couple of social media posts, one to go out on the day of release and one to go out a couple of days afterwards. So 2 social media posts that went out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, a few other places. But first of all, so social media did 2 posts that went out, delayed kind of response. I then created the blog for my website, which went out, and that's scheduled actually for next week as a kind of a reminder for people. I then scheduled a LinkedIn article as well that went out the day after it got released. So it got released to everybody, and then hopefully the host will share it at that point as well. And then I shared it after them. But then I also then created a few social media posts that went out also during that time as well. So straight away, I've also sent it out to my newsletter as well, which is scheduled for Sunday. You can see that's a fair bit of marketing activity there. That means that I know that my social media following have seen it. My newsletter have seen it. My LinkedIn article newsletter has seen it, and it's on my website. Straight away, that's 4 places I've shared it, and I've only just started. I'm gonna be connect when I see hosts connecting and post all about it. I'm going to be in the comments and I'm going to be talking to them. Oh, I also supplied them a blog so their audience could have a blog from me as well. You know, we went all in. The main thing is I'm going to now use this as a connection tool and a networking tool. So I'm going to be talking to the host on every other day basis, just to check in, see if they're going to see if they've got any questions that I can answer them. I'm gonna say to the host if they want me to do a private webinar for their audience, I can do. So therefore, they can ask me questions. I'm going to be in the comments and I'm going to be talking to them. I'm going to be answering their questions in the comments as well. I'm going to be connecting with them after I've answered their questions. You know, all of this stuff is what most people should do, but I would say only a small percentage actually do. And those small percentages make me, that small percentage are the people who get a lot out from their podcast appearance. People who don't get anything from podcast appearances don't do anything and expect the host to do it all. You need to do the work as well. And this is why spreading the word is so important. So my main conclusion of spreading the word, just kind of after all of that, share it as much as you can in as many different places as you can. Social media, newsletter, blogs, articles, and use it as a networking tool. It is the most effective networking strategy. You know, get in the comments, talk to the people, share it. You know, keep that relationship with the host and make sure that they know you're available for anything coming up. You know, any live webinars, anything like that. They might need a future guest that they can call upon you. They might know someone else who's got a podcast who you might fit in with. You know, you could always do that. A great way of doing it also is at the end of the episode, just ask them, you know, if there's anything as a podcast guest you can improve on. That puts control back into the host's run to give you a bit of feedback, which is absolutely fantastic. The main thing is keep that relationship. Don't think it's a one-time done, job done kind of thing. It's not. It is something that is a relationship you should nurture and take all the way through. You know, you should be able to pick up the phone to someone after 100 episodes that you spoke to in an early episode easily, you know, or not pick up the phone, message or DM, whatever you want to. But the main thing is you want to keep in touch because you never know what opportunities you might have for them, and they might have opportunities for you as well. It goes both ways. Once you've been on the podcast also, you're building up assets. So you're building up a digital toolkit. So what I mean by that is those links that are out there from my podcast episode, I'm going to store them into a file so I can get to them really easily. I'm going to be added it to a Spotify playlist with all the rest of my podcast appearances on. You know, you're building up all of those assets. You know, you might have the actual file itself, which you can repurpose into clips for your social media. You might have the audio file, so you might be able to create an audiogram. You might be able to repurpose it on your YouTube channel, whatever it will be. You know, you've got all these assets, those graphics that the host has given you with your face against their branding. It's golden. Keep all of that in a place. Now, it could just be a file on your computer or a file in Google Drive or in Dropbox, wherever it might be. But have it all in one place so you can access it really, really quickly. And then if you need to use it or send it to someone else, you can do. You know, other people, podcasters, won't do this. So therefore, if you do it, you're going to be in the minority and you will get ahead of everyone else. Right, and I've been talking for 28 minutes and 43 seconds, and that actually is the end of the presentation. So I'm going to start with the questions and answers straight away. But what I want you to do now, and this is the big thing for me, I don't want you to just finish watching this webinar and do nothing, because there's no point to that. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. I want you to write down 3 bits that you are going to start doing after this. So 3 key actions that you're going to start doing, or 3 key reflections, or 3 points that I've said that you've kind of liked. And what I want you to do is I want you to write these down. You can put it in the comments or you can just write them down. That's absolutely fine. The main thing is writing them down means that they're going to go into your login just that little bit easier, because I've covered a hell of a lot. And if I just go through, if I just quickly recap all of these slides, So in this webinar, we spoke about identifying the right podcasts, tuning in and becoming an avid listener, crafting your key messages, deliver value, not a sales pitch, connecting with the host, tech check, dress rehearsal, setting the stage, thanking the host, spreading the word, so marketing, networking, how to organize all your stuff, and then we've gone into the thank yous and that kind of stuff. There you go. Half-hour presentation all about standout guests. Now, if you've got any questions, please put them into the comments, because this is really why I do this. I just want you to have as much information as possible. So now it's time for questions. So if you've got any questions, please put them below in the comments, because really it is all about now me answering your questions. And as soon as they start coming in, I will then let you know. But I would also like to know, if you haven't got any questions, you just want to throw some statements in there, what you think the biggest, what your biggest tip is about being a guest on a podcast, if you've been on a few, or if you've actually wanted to really kind of or if you want to, post a link up to a podcast episode you've been on. Go for it. I really want to know a little bit more about what you want to do and how. And if you've got any questions at this point, just throw them out there. I'm going to pop onto LinkedIn because the comments don't tend to come through. So let's just have a little look and see if there's any comments on there. And okay, so there's a few bits. There is. So obviously with LinkedIn, I can see a few, but I can't see other ones. So I've got my phone here and I'm reading the comments on there as well. So thank you very much, LinkedIn user. Such helpful information. I'm glad you found it useful. That's all good. Preparing what I can share on podcast. I'm glad you found it useful. If you've got connected with a host, great. As well as how to make use of being on a podcast. It's for me, these are the three key messages. They are the three key messages. There's key messages listed all the way through, but they are the main three. Because what you want to do is you want to. I'm just fed up of people seeing it and not doing anything with it. It's really is that simple. It is. Okay, so there's a question on LinkedIn which isn't on here, from Mary Beth Hazeldine, and it is. So we've got, what techniques will you discuss to make pitches stand out? So I think this was posted before it, but I'm going to reply on here. So as I said in it is really about making the pitches personalized to that person. So first of all, to that podcast itself. So when you're making your pitches stand out, make it easy for the host to say yes. So do it on the platform. So do it on the platform that the host goes onto. So if you see the host regularly engaging in TikTok or Instagram, engage with them on there. Engagement's the first bit. Engagement on LinkedIn by comments and that kind of stuff. And then get to know the host first of all. You need to get to know the host more for larger shows. For small shows, you still need to know the host, but for large shows, they might have a higher criteria of guests, and so therefore they might only invite guests that they know, for instance, and they trust. So you've got to build that trust. So hang out with them on the platforms where they're at, and then craft that post. Then craft that message to them in a way that they're going to be more suitable for. So that's going to be, if they love video, do a quick video message to them. If they love, if they're on LinkedIn or a platform that needs more text, do that. If they've got a form, fill that out. But what you want to do is when they get the form or get the inquiry, they go, of course I want this person to be on my podcast because they do this, this, and this. That's what you want. But you need to you need to personalize it beforehand. There's no point sending out 100 pictures which are exactly the same, because it's not going to work at all. So I hope Mary Beth that works for you, and you get there. I've also got another point on LinkedIn it's more of a statement. So smart point about preparation being the real differentiator. I can't say that word. Pardon my French. Most people just wing it and wonder why they don't get invited. There you go. There you go. It is really about being personalized to that point. It is. And again, loads of people just don't do it, which is why when you do it, you're going to stand out more than anybody else, because frankly, people just don't do it and they won't spend the time preparing it. We all know that 90%, 98% of people don't really follow through. It's that 2%, and you want to be that 2% who do. I've got a question on YouTube. For my every first time, how do I get my audience? Great question. And I'm guessing, so if we're talking about being a guest on a podcast, so your audience is already around you. Your audience is already around you. So your audience is on your social media platforms. It is on your it's on your social media platforms. It's in the people you talk to. It's people who you hang out. It's people who you go to meetings with. That, to start off with, is your audience, because as a guest on the podcast, that's who you've got control of. Now, if you're a guest on a podcast, that podcast would already have a built-in audience, which they would have built over time. That audience has got trust in the actual host itself. So therefore, you need to start, when you're advertising your guest appearance, you advertise to your audience first of all. But then you want to use their audience to build upon, to come into your audience. So you want to build your network from that audience. So for your very first time, you put it out into different places. If your newsletter's only got 20 people on there, still send it out, because it's rewiring your brain to say you can send out a newsletter after every time you've been on a podcast. If you put it on socials, you put it on your social. If you just got LinkedIn, put it on LinkedIn. If you're on Facebook, put it on Facebook. If you're on TikTok and you just do videos, do that. It's about, when you say, how do I get my audience? It's about building your network. It's about building your network and enriching it with people who are going to gravitate to you. And it's about then connecting as well with them. You can do that through podcasting by being a guest on a podcast and then building and kind of connecting with people who are listening to your show. But it is about that connection. It's about that communication. And it's just about being in the comments. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please let me know if you are talking about growing your own audience for your own podcast, or if it's purely being a guest on a podcast, because that's what I've related the answer to, is about being a guest on a podcast. Okay, Ben said also, from awesome presentation, thank you. Where can I get the PDF you spoke about? Cheers, Ben, for that, and we catch up soon. I'm going to put it into the comments on the, I'm going to add it to a file on LinkedIn. So if you're not following me on LinkedIn, please do. And you can get all of these slides from there. But it will be in the comments straight after I've done this. I will then upload it into the comments there, so you can download it. Should have really done it beforehand. But frankly, I ran out of time. I want to be prepared for this, being kind of mentally, physically, and here, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, do that. He's also got a really cool question as well. Is how do I stream from more than one place? So with this webinar, and if you're doing live interviews as well, this is a really cool idea. I use a software, a platform called StreamYard. There's other places around that do streaming as well, but I personally use StreamYard, and that means I can connect into different destinations or different locations. So this particular one is streaming to LinkedIn and YouTube, and it depends on what level you want to go to, what platform you want to use. Each of them will have different quirks, which means that actually some will be best for you, some won't be. But the main thing is, and that's crashed for some reason. Let's just see if LinkedIn works. But I personally use StreamYard. And StreamYard is probably the best option for me at this particular time. But it might not be for you. So StreamYard is really good, really good. And yeah, that's how I stream from more than one place. There it is. What else have we got? I think that's all the questions I've got. Please, if anyone else has got any questions, please let me know. Just while any other questions are coming through, I just want to quickly give a shout out to the other courses available in your podcasting toolkit. So the idea behind your podcasting toolkit is that it gives you the different tools so you can handle each of the different aspects of podcasting as well as you can. So there are courses which are available on Grow Radio and on Udemy. Much stress they are available on Udemy. It's a great platform. So if you want to launch your own podcast, you've got the podcast launch guide. If you want to be you want to learn more about being a guest on a podcast, basically there's an extended version of these. This is a half-hour overview of a few topics. There's over 30 topics available on this course that goes into more detail, where you get 3 to 8 minute videos for each one. Goes into a lot more detail. If you're a children's activity provider, you want to learn how to use podcasting as a tool for your business, then check out Podcasting for Children's Activity Providers. There's also a free course, which is the beginner's guide to podcasting, which talks about the 5 different ways that you can engage with podcasts. I would urge anyone to check that out because it's free. You can learn, take it at your own pace, and it covers how to launch a podcast, well, the basics of how to launch a podcast, how to be a guest, bit which covers kind of the similar details of what we spoke about here, but it goes into a little bit more detail over the units, how the benefits of sponsoring and supporting a podcast, how to listen to a podcast, and how to use podcast communities as a networking tool. It's really cool place, really cool guide. I'm really proud of it, and that has just launched. And there's also other courses launching throughout 2026. So we've launched Beginner's Guide to Podcasting. If you're an author, check out Podcast for Authors. That launches in May. We've also got the Alive and Thriving course, which is basically for anybody who's got a podcast but wants to know how to jazz it up. It's really cool. We talk about processes and talk about loads of cool stuff to help you market it. And then if you're a shopping centre or you work with a shopping centre or a place, for instance, that you want to know how to promote, the shopping centres guide, the guide to podcasting for shopping centres, we'll be launching in November. So that's the other courses which are available. I just want to say thank you so much for listening, joining us for today. Remember, this is part of a monthly webinar series. So if you do want to join us for the next one, please do. I would love to see you there. That's where we talk about, I can't remember what the next one is. I'm going to need to add those to the slides afterwards if I'm going to finish it off, aren't I? So the next one is going to be on 15th of April, where we're going to be talking about how to launch your podcast. If you're looking to launch your podcast, please check it out from there. I can't see any more questions anywhere, so I'm going to leave it there for now. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions still and you're watching this on the replay, please, again, put them in the comments. I will answer them. I will get to them. I'll upload the PDF onto LinkedIn right now, and I will see you all next time for the next one on the 15th of April, where we talk about how to launch a podcast. Take care, my friends, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.